Hey everyone, Eric Watson here, freelance writer, player of games, writer of words, recorder of videos, and tabletop role-playing aficionado. Welcome to my weekly behind-the-scenes DM-only live stream, Crafting Annihilation, which I build, write, and prepare for our next session of Tomb of Annihilation. If you're playing characters Mannix, Celeste, Gillian, or George, turn back now. This is not meant for you, but for the rest of you, welcome. We stream our Tomb of Annihilation sessions live on YouTube every Friday evening. You can catch up on previous episodes on my YouTube page, as well as read weekly session recaps at roguewatson.com. If you would like to support the channel, please check out patreon.com/roguewatson. Shout out to my platinum patrons, Andrew, Richard, Joe, Will, Tiny Dancer, Nick, and Rodney, and gold patrons, RPG Papercrafts, Charming Grenade, Pretty Boy, and Yuma, Marcos, De Vicente, Gilberto, Shauna, aka Cert2B, Adam, Dead Lizard Lounge, and Sam. Thank you all very much for your support for our campaign. We use Roll20.net for streaming. I use Open Broadcaster software with Streamlabs. Y'all, we got to talk about Omou. Got to talk about Omou. There's so much going on in Omou. I am thankful that we didn't get too far into Omou in last week's session. We had a nice, pretty lengthy dialogue / role-playing session with artists, which was good. This was, I made him more of a factor in our campaign due to Mannix's personal quest. So I was pretty satisfied where that went. The players didn't really have a plan for the Frost Giants, other than maybe trying to avoid them once I teased them in the actual guardhouse. I need to... Ooh, that was nervous. I was on the map layer. Okay, there it is. The guardhouse is there. So I went ahead and included the mural so they can get the map once they got to Omou, and the graffiti on the wall, which is, I think, is supposed to be previous adventurers like leaving notes behind. Very obvious environmental storytelling device that tons of video games use, where you find, cryptic clues written on a wall somewhere or something. Which I think was pretty effective, and I love that Chris actually got out his little notebook to write notes in, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I finally get to use this." And I was like, "Yes," because we're finally in like the cool puzzle part of this game, which is not until basically the latter half of the campaign. And then I had a map ready to go because with the way the players dealt with the Frost Giants, they still had to deal with the Frost Giants in Omou, because they told them, you need to go to Omou, that's where Artis is. And I had them basically run into each other on this little map, which I got from Roll20. This is Gabriel Picard, who makes awesome maps that are the style that I like to see. What is this one called? This is from the Jungle... Quick Encounters Jungle Ruins, I believe, which I'm going to get a lot of use out of for here. The players did complain about how it was cut off right here, didn't have a lot of room. I agree with them. The problem is this map, which I'm trying to look for, originally has a river running through like half of it. So I ended up just using the other half of the map and then turning it around and just kind of fitting it to where I wanted to. The consequence of that was I had to kind of cut their battle map a little bit smaller than what they would have liked. But Frost Giant fight was interesting. This was probably one of the single most difficult fights we've had, purely like CR wise, I think, even though the fight with the pirates in Jahaka Anchorage might have been, I think it was probably the more difficult fight. That was also 2 levels ago for the players. And the Steel Predator was still the single most powerful foe. I believe they fought, I think, even more powerful than Tinder. The Frost Giants, so I think the players played it pretty well. They kind of fortified their position. They let the wolves come, and they were able to defeat the wolves almost before the Giants even made it. The only mistake that I think the players made tactically was they had their 2 tanky characters go down and engage one giant along with Dragonbait. I actually was able to take Artis out of the fight. Mainly, I was actually worried because I'm thinking, okay, Artis, narratively, I put it why he doesn't want to use the Ring of Winter because it's super unbalancing, but also it makes sense why Cold, obviously doesn't do much against Frost Giants. And then he got hurt so bad from like one attack. I was like, oh god, I don't actually want to kill Artis here with this random ass fight. So I had him buried under rubble, and that way it opened up this, because I realized, oh crap, with the way the map is cut off, the frost giants, it's gonna be really awkward just fighting down here. So I had the frost giant just opened up a thing here, which reminds me that I shouldn't ever use like full chunks of dynamic lighting because I had to actually adjust that in the middle of the battle, which wasn't too big of a deal. But anyway, it had Dragonbait, Theron, and George all engage one giant, which unfortunately left the three squishiest player characters to deal with the other two giants they were tromping up. And sure enough, everybody else took a shit ton of damage. Kaless actually went down for the first time, which I'll probably give her inspiration because it was her choice to actually stay behind with Gillian. It was really funny. Her and Mannix constantly bonus action disengage and get the hell out of there, leaving Gillian behind. They both ended up taking a lot of damage. I mean, everybody took a lot of damage. This was a pretty harrowing fight for the players, even with Dragonbait and Artis in tow. But I think it was pretty fun. It took like an hour and a half, I think, one of our lengthiest battles we've ever had, to where we started it, I believe, right when we came back from break. We rolled initiative at like 10:45 my time, and we went long. I think we ended at like 12:30 and like past midnight, which we don't usually go past midnight. So that was a very, very lengthy fight. I did not expect it to take that long, but I think it was a pretty enjoyable battle to engage in. Now, I don't think I need to impose any restrictions on resting in Omou. I just don't think it's like, I like thinking of Omou as one big dungeon on one hand, but on the other hand, I think you would be able to, jump into one of these ruins and be able to camp out there for 8 hours without being disturbed. I mean, I could roll encounters and all that, but I don't see having to make those restrictions at this point, with the caveat that, you still can't long rest constantly. You can only long rest once every 24 hours. So that is a thing. And I think the players understand that. But I'm saying this because following this battle with everybody at like 10% hit points and having just fought a huge battle, they're going to want to long rest as soon as possible. So I will probably just inform them like, yeah, you guys can long rest as soon as you find a, probably a building that is a safe area. There are rules for searching the buildings, which I could use. I don't want to slow things down too much in Omou, but I do want it to be, kind of get that feel of exploring, city ruins. There's actually a D100. Let's see, where is that in Roll20? That players can roll when they search buildings. Is that probably just in Omou? History. Okay, are these the encounters? City inhabitants. There's a lot of stuff going on here, which is tricky because we're entering Omou and all of a sudden there is a lot of spinning plates that I have to be very aware of. Whereas before I was keeping the players on a pretty linear path. I mean, throughout all of Wormheart Mine and Harakamar, that whole area, and then even the Valley of Lost Honor, I really didn't do much. And now Omou suddenly opens up a lot of stuff that I have to basically have prepped without knowing exactly where the players are going to go and what they're going to do. Obviously, they're going to be in Omou, but still, that's still a lot of areas. Okay, so navigation. The city basin is densely packed with ruined villas and overgrown courtyards. Buildings in Omou are shaped from limestone. Thick, broad-leaved vines engulf most structures, while ferns and thorny bushes choke the streets. That's just a great thing to tell the players. That's flavor text right there, baby. Let's go ahead and copy and paste that in there in my notes. I don't want it bolded though. Cautious characters can move through the city at a rate of 200 feet every 5 minutes. So they can move that far every 5 minutes. So you can actually, hey, Jordan and Tiny. Shout out to new patron Jordan, also silver level. Welcome aboard. I'll give you another shout out for tomorrow's session as well. So they can really traverse this whole damn city. If you can go 200 feet in 5 minutes, that means you can go 1,000 feet in half an hour? So you can cross. Again, I don't want to be too nitpicky about this. I'm just trying to figure out okay, so to go to the amphitheater, for example, it takes about an hour. a straight shot. It's about a straight shot for an hour of going through because everything is so densely populated. Okay, that's interesting. So you could do Omou in a day. This is going to be tricky because it's not like overland travel where you're resting and going and resting and going. You're really just kind of walking around this whole day. So I might let the players long rest here in the beginning, because they didn't actually long rest after the Steel Predator fight either, which was another cool thing about jumping into the Frost Giant fight. They'd only short rested because they had to escape the Frost Giants. So they're going to be looking to long rest because they kind of skipped their last rest, which I'm thinking I will definitely let them do here. But then that will probably be the only long rest I would let them do, just time-wise for a while, because I need to keep track kind of in my head or on my notes, like Red Wizards are out doing stuff. Kobolds can be out doing stuff. There's stuff going on in this dungeon, and if time goes by, then that consequences can happen. They don't necessarily know that yet, though. So I think I'll probably let them long rest here near the entrance. But then once the next day starts, then I'm really going to start keeping track of, okay, you guys can short rest, certainly, but any new long rests, especially because I want them to hit up the walled compound early so that they learn about, they're going to get a huge info dump from Orvix, which is the guy they can rescue, who was a Red Wizard ally, I guess, one of their scholars for Omou while he came here. And yes, he will know Celeste, which will be fun to advance her personal quest. Really, we're kind of doing the three. So we've done Theron's, we've done Gillian's, and now all three of the rest of the players are going to be happening basically concurrently while they're in Omou. Celeste has a backstory with the Red Wizards. Mannix has obviously with Zendala and Artis, and then George needs to go hunt down the King of Feathers in the amphitheater. So I need them to hit up the walled compound ASAP, which it sounds like this was the other thing. Remember, they wanted to leave this Frost Giant fight. They wanted to straight up get the hell out and then go all the way up here, rappel down. Obviously, I wasn't prepared for any of that. So yes, I did kind of spring this Frost Giant fight on them. Although I was also giving them a lot of time to plan. And the whole time I was teasing the fact that they only found one wolf. They didn't see the other one. And then I had that one wolf sneak up on them from behind. So I just kind of unleashed that battle. But at this point, I mean, I could have artists tell them, like, look, what you're proposing is fucking stupid. How do you, they want to go all the way along this cliff and rappel down 100 feet off a cliff into the amphitheater. I can't think of a worse, more dangerous prospect to do. They're trying to avoid, I guess, going through Omou, which that's kind of a shitty covenant. I mean, I get that D&D can be very open world and you can make those choices, but I feel like, I don't know. With traps, it's one thing, but with an entire area, like I give you a map and you're like, we're just going to go around this whole map. Like that feels pretty shitty. It's like, dude, I gave you a map. There's going to be content in here. It's good stuff. Explore it, damn it. But we'll see. I think that was mainly because they wanted to avoid the Frost Giants. I think now that the Frost Giants are dead, they will go through the city as normal. But I need to prep all of these things because I don't know what they're going to do. They want to go to the amphitheater because that's where the King of Feathers is. At least that's what I teased in the graffiti, which I added that on there because otherwise I think they would just see an amphitheater and say like, okay, what's a big deal about that? But I actually put a point of interest in there so they know that's where they need to go. Once they meet Orvix in the walled compound, they will learn about A, the Red Wizards are here, and B, they are solving all the puzzle shrines in order to get these cubes, which should then open up the way into the Tomb of the Nine Gods. Like that's just going to be a huge, important, like main quest advancement to learn. So and thankfully the walled compound is basically on the way to everything. So it's a good location. It's pretty early, especially if the players want to continue on to the amphitheater. What I'm going to do is basically, as they walk by, I will literally have him like call out weekly, for somebody to help him because he's been trapped. This is where the Red Wizard's base was, but it was attacked by the UNT, which will be great because it'll also tease the UNT. I'm still debating on because when they enter Omou, They're supposed to be basically shadowed by some Yuan-Ti right at the beginning. It says 5 Yuan-Ti Malisons. Watch this entrance to the city from a small cave carved into the cliffside. They follow the characters into Omou and shadow them through the streets. Their goal is to ambush the characters and capture at least one of them. If they remain out of sight, the Yuan-Ti launch their attack when the characters try to take their first long or short rest in the city. So, following their arrest in the guardhouse, which I guess I can let them choose if they want to rest in the guardhouse or try to find another area to rest in. That'll determine. And the tricky thing about me running this in Roll20 is that all of these plates I'm having to keep spinning, I want to try to create maps for to have those situations come up. I don't need to necessarily make a map for obviously every single house they enter, but I want at least one or two like generic, ruins maps in case they want to explore one of these things. I have a map for all the shrines already, but that is the only maps that I have. So what I've done is I put together a map for the walled compound, which is here. Gargoyles around the let me check up on the chat for a second. Slightly overwhelming, yeah. I think it's exciting. I think the same thing happens with Chult. When you see the Chult map, that can be overwhelming too. Gargoyles around the room could dissuade them, which could be exposed by one of the Tabaxi hunters. Yeah, and I even mentioned the gargoyles on the cliffs with Zendala mentioned that you can't fly around Omou where the gargoyles attack, but that's certainly what I would have done. It just sucks because it would have eaten up time if they actually want to turn around and leave Omou and try to go along the cliffs. I'd have all these gargoyles attack them, and it just feels like a big waste of time. So hopefully I can tell them somehow to look, just go through Omou. it's what needs to happen. Like, you've got options once you're in Omou to go wherever you want, but I need you to be in Omou, my dear players. So this is the walled compound, which is a really neat, important area because this was the Red Wizard's base. It was attacked by the Yuan-Ti, and a couple Red Wizards plus their guards were all killed. And in my campaign, anybody who dies is affected by the death curse, and their soul is ripped from their body, sucked into the soulmonger, and their body rises as a zombie or a skeleton or some other undead. So, given that the walled compound includes 30 corpses, the remains of 3 red wizards, 20 human mercenaries, and 7 bears hired in Port Nyanzaru, I put like 20-some zombies on this map. And I think I mentioned this in one of the previous Crafting Annihilations, but I really want this to be a Walking Dead style scenario where, the players at level 7, a handful of zombies isn't a big deal, but a lot of zombies could be a big deal. And this is one of those situations where the players should have advance. I'm not going to surprise them with this. They can clearly see all these bodies shuffling around, so they'll be able to kind of look at this situation and be like, okay, how do we rescue this person? Hopefully they want to rescue this person. I don't, that's that's the other thing. I don't know how to spring them on that, but help me. Players should help people. But I'm hoping this doesn't necessarily need to be a combat encounter. This can be a puzzle encounter. How do you get rid of this many zombies? Do you create a distraction? Do you create an illusion of something? Is there, you want to go back and grab a monster and put them in here? Whatever zany method the players, maybe one player, maybe George just shouts and runs off and there's a chase sequence with zombies. I'm going to really have to kind of be okay with ad-libbing and working with whatever the players do. I'm hoping it is not just a standard fight, because I think that will very much slow things down and be frankly kind of boring with all these zombies. And zombies with their undead fortitude can be just a huge pain in the ass. They just stick around and become pin cushions. But I'm hoping the players have fun with it and do something interesting here, because I'm trying to give them a unique situation that doesn't necessarily have to be straight combat, to where I may even put them on this map. That's a good question. If you put them on a tactical map, they're going to think in terms of battle. It'll be curious to see whether I decide to do that or not. Kind of depends on where the players' thoughts are, if I put them on this map or not. But we'll see. Anyway, they need to rescue Orvix is the point. They need to clear out these zombies or move them or do something. And then Orvix was the only survivor of this Red Wizard attack. and he will be able to tell the players, like, yes, the red wizards are here. We are, here for the same reason you are, basically, for the soulmonger. We don't like souls being sucked into a thing either. The difference between the red wizards and the players, ostensibly, is that the red wizards would like to control the soulmonger for themselves and not just destroy it. But they have figured out that they need to collect these puzzle cubes around these shrines in order to access the obelisk to the north, which I think Orvix knows all of this information. Orvix can translate old Omouan, so he can tell them the legend of the 9 gods, which is important because he knows this story between the trickster gods, and because there's a neat puzzle at the end where the players, even once they have the cubes, they have to put the cubes in the right spot, and that is you have to basically determine what alignment each trickster god is, and then which they're like opposite from each other and all this, which hopefully that ends up being an interesting puzzle, but I'll probably have to remind the players because that'll be many sessions from now by the time they're there. Orvex looks forward to exploring more of the city and unlocking its secrets. If he's still with the characters when they retrieve all 9 puzzle cubes, he jumps at the chance to accompany them on their descent into the Tomb of the 9 Gods. That's interesting. If they want to keep him with him, he actually can be a party member, which is kind of fun because he's an informative party member and not a combat party member, so that's actually kind of useful. Okay, my group ended up killing the King of Feathers. Oh, kiting the King of Feathers into the group of red wizards. That's pretty smart. Kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Are the Malisons tracking them in Yuan-Ti form or the shape changer snake form? So just an ambience of snakes throughout Omou, but some literally following and staring at them unsettlingly. That's a cool idea. Yeah. I thought of that as an escape mechanism, not necessarily as a stealthy mechanism, but that's a very good point. You could have just them tracking them as snakes, which would make sense for sure. I always forget those guys can transform into snakes, because you never want to do it in combat because they're just normal snakes from what I can tell. But you can use it for out of combat pretty effectively. Where my UNT at? So many Malisons. Let's see. Shape Changer. The UNT can use its action to polymorph into a medium snake or back into its true form. Its statistics are the same in each form. Oh, really? So it's not just a normal snake then. So polymorph is a bit of a misnomer here because polymorph means... well, I guess the spell polymorph means you turn into that beast with that beast's hit points. But if the UNT transforms, it says it keeps its same armor class and hit points. And I guess its bite ability is the only thing it can do. Any equipment it's wearing or carrying isn't transformed. That's a pain in the ass. So if you're using your snake form to spy on somebody, you can't just transform and then have your bow ready. Or I could. I'm the fucking DM. I could do whatever I want. I like the idea of the UNT shadowing them. Maybe I don't even know if I want to actually launch an attack on them. It does say they attack. Let's see. Yeah, the UNT launch their attack when the characters try to take their first long or short rest in the city. I should okay. Assuming they long rest at the beginning of next session, I need to figure out what their guard duty plan is because I haven't done this in a while, is actually launch an attack on them while they are resting. So I'll need to go over that and say, okay, what are your guard shifts? Who's on guard duty? Because I think what I do is I give them 4 guard shifts and I roll a d4 to determine at what point, who's on guard when the attack happens. They've got a +4 to stealth, so I could treat that as a 14. Or I could roll, I guess. But certain characters will be better at seeing them than others. And the idea here is they would attack, but they would not attack to the death. They would retreat when things get hairy. But I like that. I like doing that because that will tease the UNT are here and they are aware of the players, especially if some of them retreat. So I could see that being pretty cool. So that is 5 UNT Malisons. That is not a throwaway fight by any means. Malisons are CR3. They've got 60 hit points, garbage armor class, but they can attack twice. They've got the longbow, which does extra poison damage. Their scimitar, which I guess is not coated in poison, and then they can bite people in melee range. These guys are not easy, especially if the players are this damaged and think, okay, we're going to go down for a long rest, and then I spring this fight on them when they're that damaged. And let's go back to the other screen and see how damaged they are, in fact. Yeah, everybody's at like 20% hit points or something. Manic's at 15 hit points. He's at a solid like 50% HP. But everybody else is super, super low. So that would actually be very scary if I launched this UNT fight. Woof. Jeez Louise. How are their spell slots doing? Omou's no joke. What? Gillian does not have... Does she really? I guess she's been using her bagpipes, hasn't she? She's got all of her spell slots, man. Theron... Well, I don't know if Theron used his either. Okay, he did use some. I know he conjured animals there at the end. And he used Pass Without Trace a bunch of times. Yeah, they still got a lot of spells. They're fine. They're fine. They can heal themselves constantly. But that would be interesting because the players are thinking, all right, we'll get a long rest. Let's go ahead and roll dice. And I'm like, no. You need to put up a guard shift. We're getting serious about this rest business. And that should put the fear in them for resting in Omou in general, which will be very interesting too. The tricky thing will be if they want to rest on this map or if they want to find a location that doesn't have a bunch of frost giant bodies in it that's maybe more defensible. And I'd have to come up with another small map. What are the UNT's motivations with the players? The UNT are defending their home, basically. They have their home is beneath the palace, and for the same reason as the Red Wizards, they are defending their area, and they've basically been hired, at least Rosnisi as the leader of the UNT, by a Serac to guard the tomb. So they are here, and a Serac has, I don't know, promised power or something. I need to check on that. To Rosnisi to essentially guard this area. So that's why the UNT attacked the Red Wizards, because they were snooping around this area, and they were a big enough force that it was pretty obvious for the UNT to match them with an equally big force. With the players, it's just they have this the UNT have this detachment force generically guarding this area, and I mean, they probably saw the Frost Giants and didn't want to fuck with the Frost Giants, and were maybe trying to figure out what to do. The UNT were watching this whole thing play out, and then once the players beat them, and the players be this damaged, then hell yeah, the UNT would try to move in. God, the only fucked up thing I can see is that if this UNT fight goes very south for the players, well, in that case, then I'll have artists release the Ring of Winter. That's kind of my ace in the hole. And I always underestimate the players anyway. I bet they'll kick these guys' asses. I think having them have to fight the UNT. First of all, it's their first battle with the UNT. Well, no, it's not. They fought them in Oralunga, technically. They did fight them in Oralunga. It's been a while. I'll say that. But it will be very interesting having to do a battle when everybody is that injured. That would be a really interesting twist on what would be a otherwise fairly conventional fight. It says it is 2 Type 1 Malisons, 2 Type 2... Does anybody else hate the fact that all the Malisons are literally called Type 1, Type 2? Like, you couldn't come up with a cooler, like, in-universe name? Like, fucking Fang Striker, or... I don't know, Snake Shedder, something like Type 1, Type 2. That's so fucking stupid. Come on, Wizards, you're better than this. The group consists of 2 Type 1 Malisons, 2 Type 2 Malisons, and 1 Type 3 Malison. This sounds like a fucking algebra problem. It's an SAT question. 2 Type 2 Malisons are waiting for a train carrying 3 Type 3 Malisons. I don't even know what the difference is here. I should look that up. Because there's a different the one I always picture is the one with the snake on top and the snake tail and the snake head. But I think that's actually an entirely different. I think that's the Abomination. Yeah, that's what I'm picturing. Those guys are fucking cool. Like the almost the Naga looking things. Those are awesome looking. The Malisons are like the weird hybrid between that and like people with different versions. Where does it list them? Type 1, human body with snake head. Okay. Human head and body with with snakes for arms? So he can't carry weapons? Snakes for arms. That's like a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle villain or something. Human head and upper body with a serpentine lower body instead of legs. Okay, that I can picture. Type 2 is snakes for arms. And everything else is normal, so you're just running along with your fucking snake arms wailing around? That's really goofy. Unfortunately, they all use the same token, which is clearly the Type 1 Malison. So I don't actually have a token for Type 3. I'm tempted to just ignore the snake for arms guy and instead stick to the Type 1 and because the Type 1 has got the bite, and then I assume Type 3 has got something to do with their tail. Can they do their tail? Yeah, it's got constrict. That could be cool. I might just use those. Is Rosnisi suffering from the death curse? Yes. My DM completely skipped Rosnisi. Wow. Rosnisi's like a big part of the campaign, I feel like. Of course, you could skip whatever part you want. So yes, that's the interesting thing. Rosnisi is suffering from the death curse, which means he's wondering what the fuck is a Serac doing down there, because now he's starting to realize, like, damn, I'm dying from this death curse, and I fear that this started ever since a Serac was like knee deep in this tomb doing stuff, and that's going to be a big part of the story. Is the players think Rosnisi is going to be this big boss battle at the end of the Fane, but once they get to the Yuan-Ti dungeon, but in fact they can actually work with it. Now they might want to fight and kill him anyway. That's totally their prerogative, but he would be willing to work with the players and be like, look, if you go down there, I'll give you the key because I'm, not feeling very good about my alliance, for example. But they will need to get that audience with Rosnisi first. So I'm looking forward to the Fane of the Night Serpent a lot. I think there could be some cool stuff going on there. I really want to be able to properly capture my players to drag them in there, but I realize that's also a very tricky thing to do. So I'm still keeping that up in the air. It's not going to happen this session for sure. Ideally, you kind of want them to be mostly done with Omou in terms of doing most of the shrines and dealing with the red wizards and dealing with Artis and Zandala. I feel like I want to wrap all that up before we get to the Fane. The problem is that's not really up to me. It's kind of up to the players in terms of where they go, because I do want to try to replicate a bit of an open world situation here where they can kind of choose where they want to go and when they want to do it. So if they make a beeline for the Royal Palace, then I kind of have to run the okay, now the UNT are going to capture you in full force and drag you to the Fane with an audience with Rosnisi. So that could happen. I'm glad I teased the King of Feathers in the amphitheater, because I think the players will at least make their way completely up here, which is like half of this area. And then once they've done the amphitheater, they've by then, of course, realized they have to do the shrines, and then doing some of these shrines, or at least going towards there, will take them closer to the Royal Palace, and that's when I can unleash at some point the actual Fane of the Night Serpent dungeon and do all that stuff. But getting a bit ahead. What's type 4 and 5? Mason asks. That's a good question. That's not in the part I think they added more types. In Mordenkainen's, maybe it was. I wonder if that was added in Mordenkainen's. Let's see if it'll. Because I've got Mordenkainen's in here. I reviewed it like last year. What do you mean there's no results for Yuan-Ti? How dare you? Did I spell that right? Yuan. Well, maybe it wasn't added there then. Well, let's see. Type 4 is a human form with one or more serpentine tails. That's dumb. Just a dude with a tail. What is the point of that? And then type 5 is a human form covered in scales. Okay, so just dudes, basically. That's the same thing as the pureblood. The pureblood is the human form with, like, vaguely snake parts. That's dumb. I guess it's if you want, like, somebody who looks like a pureblood but wants better, but you want the better stat block, then these types exist, technically. Not very impressive, though. I also have to remember they have a built-in suggestion. I tried using that a lot during our Oralunga encounters, and it did never go off, I believe. Suggestion works well if you've got, I feel like if you've got an interesting environment that you can use, but I guess at the very least you could tell somebody to, like, go fuck off as a suggestion. Animal friendship snakes only. Could I, if I wanted to up the CR, I could have them just some normal ass snakes attack. What does animal friendship let you do? Which would give some incentive for their druid, for Theron to use his animal abilities if you wanted to. Convince a beast you mean it no harm. Doesn't let you dominate them, though. Otherwise, the beast must get a wisdom saving throw, be charmed by you for the spell's duration. For 24 hours. If it's charmed, I mean, you could probably convince that snake to help you defeat your enemies. The UNT, I mean, I just feel like they should be able to control snakes. Like, that should be a given, pretty much. Somebody also you all have to remember to remind me that the UNT have advantage on saving throws against spells and other magical effects. That's huge. That is a huge thing and a big part of their CR rating, I'm sure. Just advantage on all spells and magical effects. Like, so that would be like the Silver Daggers, Blinding Light, like all that stuff. They have advantage against it. That is a big plus. I don't necessarily need to add more enemies to this fight. I feel like 5 Malisons is probably pretty good, especially given I will be attacking the players before they get the benefit of the long rest, so they will still be on their very low hit points. Follows Guide to Monsters, thank you. Also, there's a map inside it for Yuan-Ti's temple. Ooh, that's cool. I don't feel the need to add any more content at this point in the game, though. I'm very excited about. I thought about obviously adding stuff to Chult, like what's that dungeon that was in Yawning Portal? There was a what's it called? I forgot. It's a lost shrine of something. And it felt very Chult-like. I believe technically it's supposed to be a little more Aztec than what Chult is going for, but it felt like the themes were pretty similar. Although those old dungeon designs are also kind of just murder row things that are more about just killing players than trying to tell stories, from what I can understand. Not to pass too much of a harsh judgment on the classics, but I didn't really feel the need to add too much more at this point. I added the Typhoon Palace, and then I replaced Oralunga with a dungeon. We skipped Nangalore, which is a bummer. But now that we're in Omou, I don't think I need to add anything more at this point. The only thing I'm doing is I'm turning areas into battle maps. So the Walled Compound is a battle map. The Amphitheater is a battle map. All the shrines already have their own maps. I actually just this morning made a map for the Great Rift if the players want to go do that, because I figure with the visibility, if they come right here, I mean, 500 feet, you can't really see details of what's going on, but you should be able to still see. So they'll be able to see the procession of Vegapygmies sacrificing a grung by just throwing it into the lava. This is not necessarily meant to be a combat encounter at all, but maybe I can make things interesting, because I did actually put a map together for this using this kind of bridge map and just replacing, obviously, all the water with lava and trying to recreate the feeling of a bridge to an island with lava below it. The map actually gets jacked up if I zoom out too far. There we go. So I used that water map and then kind of very poorly finagled a lava rift underneath. But there's the bridge, there's the island. It's even semi to scale, because the bridge is almost 50 across, and this island is about 50 across. Hidden Shrine of yes, the tomato. Tamachan. That was the one. Yeah. But yeah, this is the map for the Great Rift area, which will have a bunch of Vegapygmies and sacrificing a Grung to it, which will be really funny because story-wise, the players are supposed to want to rescue the Grung, and then they can take it to one of the shrines and then be good in with the Grung. But as we know, George hates the Grung, so I don't know what the players will do in this situation. What I could do is just have, if the players interrupt the Vegapygmies at all, have the Vegapygmies turn around and fight the players. Vegapygmies are super shitty, so I don't know if that would even be a fight worth having. The only reason it would be worth having is to create a obviously interesting dynamic here with the lava around them. So there are possibilities where the Vegapygmies could like barrel into somebody and knock them down 100 feet into lava, which is basically straight death. So that also feels a little, yeah, the Vegapygmy jumping after the sacrifice feels a little cheap to do that. So I don't, what's odd is I made a battle map for this, but I don't actually expect it to be combat at all. George will participate in the sacrifice. How far can Mannix see with his lenses? I mean, how far can anybody see in D&D? There's not really a firm rule for that in terms of visibility. I feel like you kind of have to use like real world like physics for that. Obviously, the buildings will create line of sight blockers, but in terms of like looking across, I try to always measure in terms of football fields, which is 100 yards, so 300 feet. So I mean, you can look across a football field, and you can't see necessarily details, but you could see like a person and what they're wearing and that kind of thing. 2 football fields away, which would be 600 feet. You could still tell there's somebody over there. You could probably see like the colors they're wearing, that kind of thing. That's the kind of visibility I'm picturing. Obviously, I can jack with that, but there's smoke coming off the lava, and there's buildings everywhere, and there's jungle things. But in general, I would probably vaguely describe areas before they get to them, and then once they get close enough, they'll be able to see kind of exactly what's going on. Probably on the other side of the bridge. If they want to explore down there, they'll be able to see more what's going on in the Great Rift if they want to go down there. But I don't have a combat encounter here, and I don't think all these areas need to have combat encounters. It'll instead just be kind of a weird like flavor moment where the Vegapygmies are doing some kind of weird ritual. I don't think my players have actually interacted with Vegapygmies yet either. We definitely have interacted with Grung. So, hopefully, the players will continue to go through Omou. The plan is, I'll still vote for surprise attack by ambush of snakes, knocking out a weakened sleeping character and taking them away to stop players from using AoE attacks against UNT to allow interrogation. Ooh, you want to kidnap somebody? That gets real tricky. Party sitting by a fire and they look into the darkness. Tens pairs of eyes moving back and forth. Dozens of snakes. That's good. Yeah, I need to. It looks like it's just kind of a city, but it's not supposed to be this barren. It's supposed to be like completely overrun with jungle. And the fact that it mentions it's pretty even hard to walk around. It says even if they throw caution to the wind, the density of the undergrowth makes it tricky to move faster than 200 feet per minute. Each building takes 30 minutes to clear if they want to search. That's true. George Escape does let him teleport. So if they want to search buildings, they can do that. They can roll a D100, and it has a 60% chance of something being in that building. I don't think I would rule that like you can search every single building on this map, but like a general area would be searched. So like you want to search, you're here, you can search like the surrounding buildings with a D100. My only concern with that is, do I need to create a kind of one-off battle map for a room in case it is a combat encounter? Because the combat encounters are assassin vines. See, it says the Vegapygmies are not in a fighting mood, or a nest of just creatures. So it could be giant wasps, sturges, or swarms of poisonous snakes. I'm tempted to almost make those just like a saving throw, almost like a trap versus an actual combat encounter, because a bunch of sturges and a swarm of snakes. That's different than. Let's see. I don't want to make too many of these random encounters straight up fights because I think that's going to slow things down, and I don't think these fights would be the least bit challenging for the players. Swarm is CR2. How many swarms of snakes are there? 1d3, so you could have 2 or 3 swarms of poisonous snakes. That might be worth having a combat encounter for. Giant wasps. We have fought giant wasps before. I think that's kind of a cool thing, though. The players could choose to search certain areas in the hopes of finding treasure, because they can find treasure. 1d6 Omo and art objects worth 25 gold pieces. They can also find plants, which some of the plants have different effects, which I haven't really explored that too much. Let's see, Appendix C. I kind of want to give like the plants having like similar potion effects, but they might already have that. Where's Appendix C? I still find it easier to flip through the book than the actual Roll20 stuff, by the way. That's why I'm not flipping through screens. Dancing monkey fruit, manga leaves, heal 1 hit point. Just more than 5, succeed on a DC Constitution saving throw, or fall unconscious for an hour. Zabu mushrooms, or a grenade, a poison grenade. That's kind of cool. That'd be a cool thing to add. I like the fact they can search and find like finite, resources you can use. Okay, you can cure somebody with poison with wild root. Wooka nuts, we know that one. Cinderberries allow you to eat. We don't really keep track of that. Gain advantage on saving throws against disease and poison for the next 24 hours. And then Riot Root, you can gain temporary hit points. Okay, most of these already have pretty cool effects, so that'd be a neat one. You could find plants. God, you have to roll a 71 through 75 on the D100 to find those plants, and then you have to roll again to see what plants you find. I kind of want to encourage players to search. I might use artists to do that. Maybe he'll be like, hey, it might be worth searching through these houses or something. And then just collectively, or just pick one character to one player to roll a D100 for like a certain area. So like this would be an area, and then this would be an area. In fact, maybe I'll even create like a little radius of like a searched circle to note that players already searched that area, and give them, maybe like a dozen areas or so around the city that could be searchable. That kind of abstracts them in terms of you're searching all these buildings, and then if you roll a 1 through 40, you don't find anything, and if you roll any of the other ones, then one of the buildings you searched happened to have this thing in it. I think that's worth doing. One of them is just a collapsing floor, which is a dexterity saving throw where you take damage. So I think that could be interesting for sure. Assassin finds would definitely be straight combat. The nests could be, I guess, combat. I might replace the Vegapygmies with another trap type thing. Poison darts or something. I like that idea. I don't know about the random encounters. What time are y'all starting tonight again? It's tomorrow night, Mason. Tomorrow night. Friday nights is 9 o'clock Central Time, Central U.S. time, which we just had daylight savings here in the U.S., so it gets dark super early and depressingly. Dead Explorer table, treasure drops, and caches. Yeah, and Omou does have its own random encounters, but like I said, I don't know how much I want to slow things down. I mean, caches, I'm probably going to roll that stuff into the searching on, because that makes the players more active participant. I think that's more interesting. If they choose to search the area, and I think I am going to go ahead and tell them this if they don't think of it already. If they start just walking forward, I'm going to have artists say like, hey, we could search some of these buildings, for anything worthwhile. And then I'll have the players roll a D100. And then once I mark it on the map, then that should tell the players, oh, we can actually do this like multiple times for multiple areas. And then I'll basically turn that into the possibility of an encounter. And I could include some of the Omou encounters in that, which there's a whole section. Let's see if I can find this on. Where are we at? Chapter 3. We're on session 50 something. We're in chapter 3. I guess it's just under Omou. And one thing I wanted to ask you guys while I am looking this up, and it's something I posted to the Patreon page, is part of the story in Omou is that, so the main quest, once the players find Orvex and talk to him, is they need to get to the tomb, which means they need these 9 puzzle cubes. So they need to start doing all of these shrines. So I need to, we've gone almost this whole time in Crafting Annihilation, haven't actually talked about the shrines, which is the main thing the players need to be doing in Omou. The interesting thing here with the shrines is that the Red Wizards are doing them at the same time. Or maybe they've discovered it later, like they had to, maybe they recently discovered it. Some of them they might have failed at and moved on. Maybe they split up into different groups. I kind of have to work through that. But the cool thing is it's flexibility, because I can choose as the DM which shrines that I want to have already been completed by the Red Wizards, because the players don't have to do all 9 shrines, which means I need to look at them, decide which shrines I want the players to do, and which shrines I want them to show up and have it be already completed, and the Red Wizards having already done it, which is a great tease for the fact that there are still Red Wizards out there. And that'll be part of the tease, is that Orvex comments on the fact that they weren't, like most of them were killed here, but there should be at least another group or two. And obviously, Kales knows Zagmira is here somewhere and is not, and that'll be a cool thing where she can be checking the bodies for, if Zagmira is there and she is not. So the interesting thing here is that the Red Wizards has some of the puzzle cubes, and then Raz Nisi, for whatever reason, has the last one. I don't know if, I forget why he ends up with the last one. If he realizes that everybody's gathering them, then maybe he sends a contingent of Yuan Ti to get the nearest shrine, which I'm thinking that would either be 18 or 19. So my question to all of you, if you have experience with Tomb of Annihilation, or you've just read the book deeply, what recommendations do you have for which shrines are better than others? I guess we go to the this shrines map, which hopefully has all of the shrines together collectively, because I can pick and choose which of these shrines that I want to run and which of them I don't want to run. And there are lots of different options. Some of them are more puzzly than others. Some of them are almost a straight combat. Some of them I feel like they don't work very well. They're either not intuitive or the players can just bypass them easily. But that's something that I want to ask all of you, and that's a question I posed on the Patreon page as well, is if anybody has any specific recommendations or warnings about which shrines are fun and which ones aren't, because there's an interesting situation where I could basically choose to skip some of the shrines. Now I completely forgot what I was going to look up. I think the encounters. Okay. So navigation, that's if they want to search. Random encounters in, Omo Encounters. That's a different thing. Why is Omo Encounters not in the Omou section, Roll20? What are you doing? Take place in ruined buildings and streets, in the fetid swamps around the buildings, and in the ruined royal palace. Roll a d20 3 times per day of game time, checking for encounters each morning, afternoon, and evening or night. Encounter occurs in a roll of 18 or higher. I never basically do that. I just script it to happen when I want it to happen. So another D100. It's definitely reduced compared to the Schultz encounters. There's some apes enjoying some excellent fruit. The apes feel threatened and show signs of defending their food. And just regular apes? Yeah, CR half apes. Back away slowly. They're just apes. Apes and baboons. I mean, these are not meant to be combat encounters, I take it. It could be a chance for, like, Theron to speak to animals, so I could kind of, throw that in there as kind of an event. Like, hey, you see a bunch of apes in a tree eating some fruit. They make some sounds at you. Assuming it's not going to be a combat encounter. I want to steal the fruit. Cholton cannibals. Paint a blue triangle on their forehead as part of their devotion or known to venture to Omou to hunt and deliver tribute. 3d6 tribal warriors feeding on the rotting remains of a dismembered zombie. Gross! It's also highly thematic, though. Sneak into camp and try to murder them. If that's worth doing. What are... 1/8, though. These guys are terrible. Huh. I like the... I like just seeing that, though. A bunch of like what you think are ghouls, but they're just people. Although ghouls would be a more interesting fight. Crocodiles! You have crocodiles in the water. Yeah. I don't know how deep that water is supposed to be that's in Omou. I have to check back on the map. I don't think it says anywhere. All this water? Hard to say. It's definitely flooding. So I'll catch up on the chat now. Next session, Orvix, sleeping, UNT, anything else? I like how you think, Jordan. You're very organized, and that's how I am too. Yes, I think next session, I always picture like a radius around the players in terms of where they can go. Even if they want to go to the amphitheater, I think they'll want a long rest. I will launch the UNT fight on them, which will either be at the guardhouse, or if they want to make it further in and then rest, I'll have to. I'll throw together a random battle map using one of these buildings, and use that as our generic. Like, you search the building and find probably the river one actually, which is the one I just used, and just like turn it around and add some more walls and things. Because they'll either rest here or rest a little further in, but I expect them to long rest as soon as possible. I will launch the UNT attack on them. That'll take some time. And then from there, they will either go to the Great Rift and see what's going on over there, which will depend on if I tease it or not in terms of what they can see, which would probably be a fun thing. You wake up in the morning and you see a procession of Vegapygmies crossing the bridge, chanting with a gong held over their heads, and maybe the players want to go check that out. But if they want to go north towards the amphitheater, then I will definitely have Orvex call out to them from the walled compound, and we'll run that whole event. The only thing they could do is, if they ignore Orvex, then I'm kind of screwed in terms of telling them more about the story. I don't have a backup plan for that, so hopefully they'll take the bait there. The two, I kind of need to have these shrines ready to go just in case we have that much time for next session, which is, which ones are those? Let me catch back up on chat. Where was my chat? Kobolds reset the shrines. That's true. That's true. They do reset the shrines. I guess I would tease it by having Red Wizard bodies laying around. I remember fighting the Froghemoth was fun. So the Froghemoth is this one, obviously, which one is that? Kubazan. Oh, yeah, you said Kubazan. Yeah, that one I think is pretty much just a straight fight, from what I understand. Let's go back to that shrine map. And the shrines is something I'll be talking about, obviously, probably for the next 2 or 3 weeks of Crafting Annihilation as we do Omou. But it is so at this point I have not cemented which shrines have their cubes and which do not. In other words, so that's why I'm asking everybody. Let's see, Kubazan. So I need to have Kubazan and Shagambi, which are the two. One of them is to the west of the walled compound. The other one is directly to the east. So those are the first ones that they can do. I feel like, narrative-wise, those should be the ones the Red Wizards have already done, because those are the ones closest to the walled compound. But I don't want to dissuade the characters right away by saying, "Oh yeah, this cube's actually gone." You did all that for nothing. That feels kind of shitty. Also, so I'm conflicted about that. Yeah, Kubazan with the Froghemoth. It's just a big boss battle, basically. You need to get the key from this head. You open the door. This is the weird one, though. The puzzle I don't feel like works very well in here. You're supposed to step on these planks around the shrine, and it's like a series of dexterity checks. But if you can notice, the distance here is 15 feet, which means I believe you only need a 15 strength score to just fucking jump this. From the way the map is painted, like you could just have a strength of 15 and just jump it without having any problem. So I'm a little confused, because if I was a player, I would immediately say, well, fuck that. Just run and jump across this whole thing. Now I could have it be where like, oh, well, you do that and the shrine, has a countermeasure and the spikes shoot up and hit you on, I could do something like that, which I probably will. But it just feels weird. I just wish that, I get that a lot of traps can be bypassed by magic. That's a really tricky thing in D&D. But at least this one, like they should have realized their own rules and been like, look, players can, somebody in the party having a 15 strength is not uncommon by any means, and somebody can just leap across and otherwise ignore that actual challenge right there. Shigambi was a cool fight as well. Okay, so these are the two shrines I reminded myself of before coming on today. So this is the one where the players have to go downstairs into this pit, and then they step on a like a platform or something. Okay, there's Commandants behind the shrine for some reason. Pedestal. Is this the right one? Shigambi is 4. Pedestal is 4 foot high cylinders impervious to damage and spells. Closing reveals a stone hatch in the top of it. It's a gas that releases. I think I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay. Must obtain the 4 bronze spears from the monsters in Area 4C. This is a shitty thing I need to redo also because Roll20, if an enemy does not have official art, they do this really dumb thing where they just put the name on the token, which is really stupid. So I'm going to have to remind myself to create a token of a clay gladiator because that's not going to fly for me. With all 4 spears. So the idea is, I think they have to go down there. They have to stand on this pedestal, and you're supposed to stay down there and fight these clay gladiators. But I believe the clay gladiators are pretty strong, and you're supposed to fight them one after the other. Yeah, CR5, 17 armor class, 112 hit points. They make 3 melee attacks. It's a goddamn berserker, isn't it? Deals an extra weapon die when it deals damage, included in the attack. It's a construct. It can also parry as a reaction. Oof, yeah, that's brutal. I feel like this is a situation where, in designing this this shrine, they tried to come up with a way to force players into doing it, and I feel like the players are going to be trying to do everything they can to not have to follow the rules of this trap. The hallway contains 4 cramped cells behind iron portcullises. The portcullises, locked in place, can be raised only with a knock spell or by stepping on the pressure plate in area Q4D, which is... Okay, so it's a pressure plate they have to step on, which raises these cells, which allows the clay gladiators to come in. Let's see. Fight if attacked or when called to the gladiatorial pit. If reduced to 0 hit points outside of the pit, it disappears with spear and shield in hand. So you have to fight and kill it in the pit. How big is that pit? This actually doesn't really work very well in Roll20, does it? Because you've got the bars right here. I wonder if it's worth creating like a little separate map that acts as like an insert. Because I can't really have tokens fighting in this small ass area. Is it 10 by 10? No, it should be 15 by 15. It looks like 3 squares. It's just shaped to make it obviously look like that part is lower, but I think I need to make a separate insert map for Roll20 to make this actually a 15 by 15 room. It's going to get real confusing with the elevation otherwise. If defeated in the pit, the gladiator leaves its spear behind, and then the spear is what you need to take back. The gladiators go anywhere in the shrine but can't leave it. The pit is 20 feet deep. Bars are spaced 2 feet apart. Which is not what this looks like. This looks like they're 5 feet apart. A medium or smaller creature can easily slip between the bars, but the walls of the pit are too smooth to climb without the aid of climbing gear or magic. So do they all file out one at a time? 6-foot archways stand opposite one another at the bottom of the pit, the floor of which is one large pressure plate. Applying 50 pounds or more to the floor causes the portcullis in Area 4C to rise with a large clatter upon the clay. So the weird thing is, if the players try and get smart about it and they put like a weight down there and the clay gladiators come out, they will just march all the way out, which they can still leave, I think. But if the players fight them and defeat them not in the pit, then they don't solve the shrine. That's the bummer that the players need to figure out, is that they need to be able to fight. They need to be at least defeat the gladiators while there is a weight on the shrine floor, which means you could just drop something heavy enough down there and then just sit there and attack them with range attacks, couldn't you? Do the clay gladiators have? I'm trying to just think ahead of ways that the players are going to game this, because I mean, all these shrines are going to be me, trying to work with the players and not necessarily shutting down all their ideas, but not necessarily letting them just walk all over me with their different tactics. I guess no, they don't. They only have a melee spear. They can't throw it because the players need the spear. So my only concern is that what's to stop them from just kind of hanging out up here? If they're smart enough to apply pressure to the bars, that'll be a concern. Actually, need to scroll back up on the chat. I am behind now. Let's see. I like the one with the floor tiles with images on them. Is that 14? I can't see the screen. Oh, my bad. The floor tiles. I think that is Aegon. That one feels really cool. That one feels fucking Indiana Jones Last Crusade, which is just still one of the best instances of a mini dungeon crawl in cinema, in my opinion, in terms of like traps everywhere and puzzles. Which, yeah, that one is very cool. Aegon is number 10, although the floor puzzle is only like one part of it, I think. And number 10 is also on the way to the amphitheater. So that could be an easy one to do as well. Brian says Moa and Aegon were kind of dumb. This is good, though. I need this information. Multiple people had to place their face into a mask or something. That one wasn't too exciting. Papazzoli can be challenging depending on how the clues are communicated. The problem is I haven't actually read about too many of these shrines ahead of time. I've been trying to keep on the ones that are near me. I should be writing these down because you guys are giving me some good information here. Let's see. So we'll put it under shrine advice. So what's everybody saying? I have to catch up on the chat here. So we like Kubazan. Kubazan's just a fight, even though the actual puzzle isn't that great. Shigambi has a cool fight. I just have concerns if the players can game the system there. Let's see. So we have conflicting on Aegon. Brian, why do you think Moa is dumb? Moa is the one that's in the middle of the lava, by the way. If I go back to the Omou map, the only interesting thing instantly is that one of the shrines is right here, located literally on an island in the middle of this lava rift. So that's the only interesting thing, is you can force the players to at least make it there. And it would be really funny if they make it there and realize it's already been completed by the Red Wizards. I don't remember what the face mask one is. Let's see. Nang Nang is a grung shrine, so that's a must. That's a good point. George does have a really hilarious relationship with the grung. Obo Laka shows Red Wizard petrified, and Moa shows the opposition between the gods, Moa versus Wongo, so that could clue into the various alignments of the gods later on. Okay. Technically, I could put that anywhere, though, right? I could put the... is that like a mural they find in the Moa Shrine? I could probably... Or is that part of the shrine itself? That you learn all that? Okay, it is kind of part of the shrine. So yeah, that would be interesting if I can use that. We got stuck inside the temple at Kubazan. My sorcerer got freaked out and rolled a nat 20 strength check to break down the door. Like there was poison gas or something. I used Misty Step a lot. That's fair. Misty Step is great in general. Another number 4 was okay. Damn it! How dare you all have different opinions? I need consensus. On the long jumps, you can jump equal to your strength score if you can run 10 feet with the stairs. I wouldn't count that as 10 feet of running space. Is running downstairs a bit different? Yeah, I could be a stickler for that. I mean, I could probably allow a check. Basically, it would be an athletics check to make that jump. I'm an ass. Nothing wrong with that. Gladiators regen when not in the pit. Some traps can, but players must feel good when playing. Some traps simply just can't do magic. Yeah. It's not like there was 10 feet of runway. TPK is coming. Nah. Anything that splits the party. Which one split the party? I'd have to look at that as well. I don't know which one is the face mask one. Yeah, like I said, some of the shrines definitely seem a little more unintuitive than others, and it's really hard with puzzles in D&D because obviously as a DM you know that information, and what seems easy to you might seem really hard for the players, and players can get frustrated very quickly if they're really not sure how to do a puzzle. Whereas if the player can pick up on it and they get the results they think, they go through the scientific method, like, okay, yeah, this is going to work, even though they are essentially solving the entire puzzle, players love that. So I almost err on the side of making that kind of stuff more easier, and hopefully it still involves like a skill check to make some kind of danger level, but I have to look and see. I do like the ones that have the separate handouts though. Like Ejin just having this puzzle floor just seems really interesting from a like component standpoint. I think that's pretty cool, just to give them that and like, hey, this is the floor you have to solve. It looks like Papazotl also has a riddle there, and I can always modify some of them too, but I'm mainly just seeing which ones are just complete non-starters from start to finish that I want to completely skip, to where at some point the players will meet and confront with the Red Wizards, and the Red Wizards can tell them, hey, we've got the cubes from this shrine and this shrine, to where you don't have to do them. And that's like me as a DM telling the players, hey, y'all can just skip these shrines. Even though I do think the shrines are fun and the players, I think, will have fun doing them. And I feel like it's pretty well balanced, especially if we do the searching thing with a few encounters. You've got the walled compound encounter. You've got the amphitheater boss fight. There's some more. Maybe I'll sprinkle in some UNT encounters here and there. The Red Wizard will be a big showdown. Zendala. God, fuck. I didn't even talk about Zendala. What am I going to do with Zendala? I should have talked about Zendala. I'm not prepared. Chris did leave a message with her. And it's still up for debate on where her loyalties lie in terms of the players aren't quite sure. So I'm kind of leaving her up in the air in terms of where is Zendala in Omou currently. Is she running into trouble? Is she, hiding out in a building somewhere? I don't know yet. I don't know if I'm prepared to unleash that yet. I'll think about it tomorrow. I may put something together. I may not, but that's still kind of in my pocket. He did send a message, so Zendala is aware of them. Maybe she's waiting for her time to strike. It seems like if they long rest, that would be her time, but maybe she's wanting them to get further into Omou. Because, it's dangerous for her too. Maybe she doesn't like necessarily going around too much that she has to. Maybe the Vegapygmies are going to sacrifice Zendala. I mean, I could do something crazy like that. Maybe Zendala's been captured by the UNT. Maybe Zendala's in the Fane of the Night Serpent. I could do that. If I want to keep artists with the players for this long. Those are all interesting possibilities. Ooh, then I could have like a UNT talk back to... Oh, the gears of my mind are working this through. I could have a UNT answer back because they've captured Zendala if I really wanted to drag this on a little bit longer. And then all of a sudden that confrontation happens while everybody's a prisoner in the Fane, which would be banana sauce. That's interesting. What about the Coven? Like the Stone Sisters? The Stone Sisters, they pretty much peaked with the Steel Predator, and they will be seen again in the Tomb of the Nine Gods at this point. I'm basically kind of shifting gears. If you think about this as another like season of the TV show we're running, Omou, the main villains are going to be the UNT of this season of like Omou and Fane. So you probably won't see any of the end. They did destroy like the Haggai and all that. So basically, I've stopped the Stone Sisters being able to affect the players, with the caveat that maybe once they enter the Tomb of the Nine Gods, then all of a sudden the Stone Sisters become a threat again because now they're in the final dungeon with them. Wongo Shrine, okay. I will make a note of that. Wongo's might be a one to eliminate. All right, but I have gone beyond my time, which is probably going to happen for Crafting Annihilation for the next couple weeks because there is so much going on in Omou and so much of it is good stuff. So I appreciate you all very much for bouncing ideas off for our campaign, which will be tomorrow night. I will be back live streaming tomorrow afternoon for my next Let's Play episode of The Bard's Tale. And I will see you all tomorrow night for Tomb of Annihilation. Bye.